The scent hit Elara Ashwood 3 seconds before the wolf did. Pine and smoke and something wild that made her hands shake so badly she nearly dropped the injured tabby she was stitching up. Her wolf, dormant for 3 years, slammed against her ribcage like a prisoner who'd just heard the warden's footsteps. The bond she'd spent 1,000 days burying clawed its way up her throat, and for one devastating moment, she couldn't breathe. He'd found her. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well today, wherever you are in this world. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button because trust me, you're going to want to see how this story ends. This is a tale of betrayal and destiny, of a love that refused to die even when it should have, and of an Omega who discovered she was never as powerless as the world told her she was. Now let me tell you about the night Elara's entire world shattered. The clinic door opened. Elara didn't turn around. She kept her eyes on the cat's torn ear, her needle steady even as her pulse hammered against her throat. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe it was just a coincidence, just some random werewolf passing through her small coastal town. Maybe the universe wasn't cruel enough to drop Dominic Blackthorn on her doorstep after 3 years of silence. You've gotten better at hiding your scent, a voice said behind her. Deep. Commanding. The kind of voice that made wolves drop to their knees and bare their throats. But you can't hide from me, Elara. You never could. Her hands didn't shake. That was the first victory. 3 years ago, she would have crumbled at the sound of his voice. 3 years ago, she would have turned around with hope shining in her eyes like the foolish Omega she'd been. The clinic's closed, Elara said calmly, tying off the final stitch. Come back tomorrow during business hours. Appointments start at 9. She heard him move closer. Felt the heat of him at her back. The bond roared to life between them, a golden thread pulling tight, and her wolf whimpered with a longing so fierce it made her teeth ache. Look at me. It wasn't a request. Alphas like Dominic Blackthorn didn't make requests. Elara set down her tools with deliberate care. She lifted the sedated cat and placed him gently in the recovery kennel, checking his breathing, adjusting his blanket. Only then did she turn around. 3 years had made him harder. The Dominic she remembered had been devastating, all sharp cheekbones and storm-gray eyes and a mouth that knew exactly how to make her forget her own name. This Dominic was something else entirely. Leaner. Dangerous. There were shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights, and his jaw was covered in dark stubble that made him look less like an alpha and more like something feral. He looked like a man who'd been hunting. You need to leave, Elara said. Dominic's eyes traveled over her face like he was memorizing every detail. Like he was cataloging all the ways she'd changed. Her hair was shorter now, cut to her shoulders instead of falling down her back. She'd gained weight, filled out in a way that came from finally eating regular meals instead of scraping by on pack leftovers. She wore glasses now, thick-framed and practical, because she'd stopped caring what anyone thought of how she looked. I've been searching for you for 3 years, Dominic said quietly. Did you really think I'd leave just because you asked nicely? I think you'll do whatever serves your pack's interests, Elara replied. Just like you always have. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe. Or anger. With Dominic, it was hard to tell. He'd always been too good at burying his emotions under layers of alpha authority. You don't know what happened after you left. I know enough. Elara crossed her arms over her chest, a barrier between them. I know you stood in front of the Pack Council and claimed Vivienne Clearwater as your Luna. I know you put your hand on her pregnant belly and announced your heir. I know you never once looked for me in that crowd, Dominic. Not once. Because I was trying to protect you. Elara laughed. It came out sharp and bitter. Protect me? From what? From being humiliated in front of the entire pack? Too late. I got a front row seat to that particular show. Dominic moved fast. 1 second he was across the room, the next he was right in front of her, his hands bracketing her against the examination table. Not touching. Never touching. But close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off his skin, close enough that the bond between them sang with vicious joy. You don't understand the position I was in, he said, and there was something raw in his voice now. Vivienne's father had half the Eastern Pax ready to declare war if I refused the match. The child she carried, I thought it was mine. One night, Elara. One night before I met you, before the bond snapped into place, and she used it to trap me. So you chose politics over me. Elara met his eyes steadily. You chose duty and alliance and whatever game you alphas play, and you left me standing there like I was nothing. Like the bond meant nothing. The bond is everything. Dominic's hands curled into fists against the table. Do you have any idea what these 3 years have been like? Feeling you out there, alive but out of reach? The bond doesn't fade, Elara. It doesn't break. I barely slept. Barely eaten. My wolf has been tearing me apart from the inside because you're not where you're supposed to be. And where is that, exactly? Elara asked softly. At your side while you parade another woman as your Luna? In the shadows where no one has to know the great Dominic Blackthorn is bound to a nobody Omega? At my side as my mate. Dominic's voice dropped to something almost desperate. As my equal. As the only woman the moon goddess chose for me. Elara's heart was beating so fast she thought it might crack her ribs. 3 years of walls, 3 years of carefully constructed armor, and he was dismantling all of it with words she'd dreamed of hearing back when she was still foolish enough to believe in fate. The child wasn't mine, Dominic continued. Vivienne confessed 6 months after you disappeared. It was all a lie, Elara. A scheme cooked up by her father to control my territory. I banished her. Dissolved the betrothal. I've spent every day since then searching for you. 3 years, Elara whispered. You took 3 years to find me. You're very good at hiding. Something that might have been admiration crossed his face. I'm better at hunting. The clinic suddenly felt too small. Too hot. Elara needed space, needed air, needed anything except Dominic Blackthorn standing close enough to touch with those storm gray eyes looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. I don't care about Vivienne's lies, Elara said. I don't care about your explanations. You made your choice that night, and I made mine. I built a life here, Dominic. A good life. A quiet life. I don't need the bond. I don't need a pack. And I don't need you. The last part was a lie, and they both knew it. The bond between them pulsed with the truth, that golden thread pulling tight, demanding acknowledgement. Dominic leaned in closer. Not touching. Still not touching. But close enough that his breath ghosted across her lips. Liar, he whispered. And that's when Elara's carefully controlled world began to crumble. Elara shoved past Dominic with more force than necessary, putting the examination table between them like a physical barrier could somehow protect her from the mate bond that was threatening to drag her under. Her wolf was howling now, desperate and wild, begging her to close the distance, to touch him, to feel the completion that only a true mate could provide. She ignored it. She'd gotten very good at ignoring her wolf over the past 3 years. You need to leave, Elara said again, busying herself with cleaning the surgical instruments. Her hands were steady. Small miracles. I have patients to check on, and you're not welcome here. I'm not going anywhere. Dominic's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Not until you listen to what I have to say. I've heard enough. Elara scrubbed at a scalpel with unnecessary vigor. You came. You said your piece. You explained that Vivienne lied and you banished her and you've been searching for me. Congratulations on your redemption arc, Alpha Blackthorn. Now leave. She felt him studying her. That heavy, assessing gaze that used to make her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. Back when she was 18 and new to his pack, an orphaned Omega with nothing to offer except a mate bond she didn't understand, that gaze had made her feel like she mattered. Like she was more than the scraps and hand-me-downs and pitying looks she'd survived on her entire life. Now it just made her angry. You've changed, Dominic observed quietly. People do that when you abandon them. Elara set down the scalpel and finally looked at him. Really looked at him. What did you expect, Dominic? That I'd be waiting with open arms? That I'd fall at your feet because the great Alpha finally decided I was worth his time? I never abandoned you. You stood in front of the entire pack and claimed another woman as your Luna while I watched from the servants' entrance. Elara's voice was sharp enough to cut. What exactly would you call that? Dominic's jaw tightened. I call it making an impossible choice in an impossible situation. Vivienne's father had 12 packs ready to march on my territory. He had evidence, Elara. Photographs. Witnesses placing me with Vivienne the night that child was supposedly conceived. If I'd refused to acknowledge her claim, people would have died. My people. Your people. I was never your people, Elara said bitterly. I was the secret you kept hidden. The Omega you visited in the middle of the night when no one was watching. 6 months, Dominic. 6 months of telling me to wait, to be patient, that you'd announce our bond when the time was right. And then Vivienne showed up and suddenly I understood exactly how patient you expected me to be. That's not fair. Fair? Elara laughed, and it echoed harsh in the small clinic. You want to talk about fair? I was 17 when my pack was slaughtered by rogues. 17 and alone and so desperate for somewhere to belong that I walked for 3 days straight to reach your territory. Do you remember what your beta said when I arrived? That Blackthorn pack didn't take in strays. That I could work in the kitchens for food and shelter, but I'd never be pack. Never be anything. Dominic's expression darkened. Marcus had no right. He had every right. He was following your laws, Alpha. No Omega without family ties gets pack status. We're just labor. Disposable. Elara turned back to her instruments, unable to look at him anymore. And then the bond snapped into place and I thought, finally. Finally I'd found my purpose. The moon goddess herself had chosen me for something. For someone. I thought you'd announce it immediately, claim me in front of everyone, give me the protection that comes with being an Alpha's mate. I wanted to, Dominic said, and there was something broken in his voice. Elara, you have to believe me. The moment I felt the bond, the moment I saw you carrying linens through the east wing and our eyes met, I wanted to drag you in front of the entire pack and tell them you were mine. But you didn't. Elara gripped the edge of the counter hard enough that her knuckles went white. You pulled me into an empty room and kissed me like you were drowning, and then you asked me to wait. Just a few weeks, you said. Just until you sorted out some political complications. Just until the time was right. The complications were real. I don't care. Elara spun to face him, and she could feel tears burning behind her eyes. She refused to let them fall. 6 months, Dominic. 6 months of sneaking around like what we had was shameful. 6 months of watching you stand next to visiting Alpha's daughters at formal dinners while I served drinks. 6 months of falling asleep alone because you couldn't risk anyone seeing you leave my quarters. And through all of it, you kept asking me to wait just a little bit longer. Dominic moved around the table slowly, deliberately, like he was approaching a spooked animal. I was trying to build something strong enough to withstand the backlash. You were an unmated Omega with no family, no allies, no political value. There were council members who would have used you to undermine my authority. I needed time to secure your position, to make it impossible for anyone to challenge your place at my side. I didn't need a position, Elara said softly. I needed you to choose me. Publicly. Without conditions or calculations or political strategy. I needed you to stand up in front of your pack and say that the moon goddess chose an orphaned Omega as your mate, and that was enough. That I was enough. Something cracked in Dominic's carefully controlled expression. You were always enough. You were everything. Past tense, Elara noted. Appropriate. Present tense, Dominic corrected. You are everything. You are my mate, my equal, the other half of my soul. And I know I failed you. I know I made the wrong choice that night. But Vivienne was pregnant, Elara. Or so I thought. She had medical records, ultrasounds, a whole fabricated history that her father's pack doctors created. When she arrived with proof that I'd fathered her child, I couldn't just dismiss her. Pack law is clear. A trueborn heir takes precedence over everything, even a mate bond. So you chose the potential of a child over the reality of me. I chose to protect my pack from a war we couldn't win. Dominic was close now, close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. And I thought, foolishly, that you'd understand. That you'd wait for me to untangle Vivienne's lies and expose her deception. I never imagined you'd run. I didn't run, Elara said. I left. There's a difference. Running implies I had something to run from. I just finally accepted that I had nothing to stay for. You had me. I had a man who was ashamed to claim me. I was never ashamed. Dominic's hand lifted like he was going to touch her face, then fell back to his side. I was terrified. Terrified of the vultures circling my pack, terrified of making you a target, terrified of losing you to the politics and games that destroy everything good in this world. And in trying to protect you, I lost you anyway. Elara wanted to stay angry. Anger was safe. Anger kept the hurt at bay, kept her walls firmly in place. But there was something in Dominic's eyes that she'd never seen before. Genuine regret. Raw vulnerability. The kind of emotion that alphas were trained from birth to never show. Why now? She asked. Why track me down after 3 years? If you really cared, you would have found me sooner. I've been looking since the day you disappeared, Dominic said. I had trackers covering 3 territories. I hired private investigators in the human world. I followed every lead, every rumor, every possible sighting. You vanished like smoke, Elara. Like you'd never existed. I got very good at not existing, Elara said. It's a skill you develop when you've spent your whole life being invisible. Dominic flinched like she'd struck him. You were never invisible to me. Just invisible enough that you could hide me away when it was convenient. The words hung between them, sharp and true. Elara waited for the denial, the excuses, the alpha authority that would demand she fall in line. But Dominic just stood there, looking at her with those storm gray eyes that had haunted her dreams for 3 years, and said the last thing she expected. You're right. Elara stared at him. Of all the responses she'd anticipated, agreement wasn't one of them. Alphas didn't admit fault. They justified, rationalized, commanded. They didn't stand in tiny veterinary clinics at 9 o'clock at night and confess to their mistakes. What? The word came out barely above a whisper. You're right, Dominic repeated. I did hide you. I kept our bond secret because I was a coward who cared more about maintaining control than honoring what the moon goddess gave me. I prioritized pack politics over the one person who actually mattered. And when Vivienne arrived with her lies and her manufactured proof, I chose the path that seemed rational instead of the path that was right. Elara's carefully constructed walls trembled. Stop. I should have claimed you the moment the bond snapped into place, Dominic continued, and there was something fierce in his voice now. I should have stood in front of the pack council and announced that an orphaned Omega with no political connections was my fated mate, and anyone who had a problem with it could challenge me directly. I should have trusted that the bond was stronger than any alliance, any political maneuvering, any manufactured heir. Dominic, stop. Elara's voice cracked. I should have believed in you instead of trying to protect you from a world you'd already survived. Dominic took one step closer. And when Vivienne showed up pregnant, I should have come to you first. I should have explained the situation, asked you to stand beside me while we figured out the truth together. Instead, I made decisions without you, shut you out, and expected you to trust that I'd fix everything eventually. The tears Elara had been fighting finally spilled over. She wiped them away angrily. Why are you saying this now? Because you deserve to hear it. Because I've spent 3 years understanding exactly how badly I failed you, and I won't make the same mistake twice. Dominic's hand finally made contact, his thumb brushing away a tear from her cheek. The bond flared at the touch, golden and warm and devastating. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Elara. I'm asking you to let me prove that I've changed. Elara should have stepped back. Should have put distance between them. But his touch was fire and starlight and everything she'd dreamed about during 3 years of lonely nights, and she was so tired of being strong. How did you find me? She asked instead. Dominic's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Your friend Maya. The barista at the coffee shop downtown. She mentioned to one of my trackers that the new veterinarian had unusual eyes. Amber with flecks of gold. There's only one Omega in the world with eyes like that. Elara's breath caught. Maya. Sweet, chatty Maya who'd befriended her within a week of moving to town, who brought her coffee every morning and never asked questions about where she'd come from. She doesn't know what I am. What we are. No. And she won't. Dominic's hand was still on her face, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone like he was relearning her features. I've kept this quiet. No pack knows I've found you. No one is coming to drag you back to territory politics and council meetings. This is just you and me, Elara. The way it should have been from the beginning. There is no you and me, Elara said, but the words lacked conviction. The bond was singing between them now, 3 years of separation making the connection almost unbearable in its intensity. Her wolf was pushing against her mental barriers, desperate to submit, to claim, to complete what had been left unfinished. Liar, Dominic said again, softer this time. I can feel what you're feeling. The bond doesn't let us hide from each other, remember? Then you can feel that I don't want you here. I can feel that you're terrified, Dominic corrected. Terrified that if you let me back in, I'll hurt you again. Terrified that the past will repeat itself. Terrified that you're not strong enough to walk away a second time. His other hand came up to frame her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. But I can also feel the truth underneath all that fear. You never stopped wanting this. Wanting us. Elara's hands came up to push him away, but instead they fisted in his shirt, holding him close. You don't get to come here and act like 3 years didn't happen. You don't get to touch me and expect everything to go back to the way it was. I don't want it to go back, Dominic said. I want to build something new. Something honest. Something where you're not hidden away like a secret but celebrated as what you are. My mate. My equal. My Luna. The word Luna hit Elara like a physical blow. I'm not Luna material. We both know that. The moon goddess disagrees. The moon goddess also thought it was a good idea to bond me to the most stubborn, politically obsessed alpha in the Northern Territories, Elara shot back. Her judgment is questionable. Dominic's laugh was unexpected, genuine, the sound rumbling through his chest where her hands were still gripping his shirt. I've missed this. Missed you. The way you never let me get away with anything. Someone has to keep your ego in check. See? That's exactly what I need. What the pack needs. Dominic's expression sobered. I know you don't believe me yet. I know you think I'll disappoint you again. But I'm not leaving this town until you give me a chance to prove that I've learned from my mistakes. And if I refuse? Then I'll wait. Dominic's grip on her face tightened, just slightly. I'll get a room at the local inn. I'll have coffee at Maya's shop every morning. I'll walk past your clinic every evening. I'll be here, visible and present and consistent, until you're ready to talk to me again. Because I'm done hiding, Elara. I'm done with secrets and politics and doing what's expected instead of what's right. Elara wanted to believe him. Moon goddess, she wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. But she'd believed him before, and it had nearly destroyed her. I need time, she said finally. Time to think. Time to process. Time to figure out if I can even trust you again. How much time? I don't know. Maybe forever. Dominic studied her face for a long moment, then slowly, reluctantly, let his hands fall away. The loss of contact made the bond ache in protest. I'll give you time. But Elara, there's something you need to know. Something important. Warning bells went off in Elara's head. What? Vivienne's father is dead. He was killed 3 months ago by a rival pack. And before he died, he confessed to the conspiracy. The fake pregnancy, the doctored medical records, the plan to use a false heir to control my territory. Dominic's jaw tightened. The confession went public. Every pack in the region knows what he did. Knows what Vivienne did. Good, Elara said coldly. They deserve to be exposed. They also know about you. Elara's blood went cold. What? The confession included details about why Vivienne's father chose that particular timing for the deception. He knew about our bond, Elara. He had spies in my pack who reported back to him. When he learned I'd found my true mate, he accelerated his plans because he knew a fated bond would ruin his scheme eventually. Dominic's expression was grim. Your name is in the confession. Your description. The fact that you disappeared the same night Vivienne was announced as Luna. No. Elara's legs suddenly felt weak. No, Dominic, you said no one knew. You said you kept it quiet. I did. But Vivienne's father didn't. Dominic caught her arms as she swayed. Every pack in the Northern Territories knows that Dominic Blackthorn has a fated mate who vanished 3 years ago. They know I've been searching. And now that the information is public, there are going to be people who want to find you. People who want to use you against me. Then you need to leave, Elara said desperately. You need to go back to your territory and tell everyone you couldn't find me. Tell them I'm dead. Tell them the bond broke. Tell them anything except the truth. I can't do that. Why not? Dominic's hands tightened on her arms, his eyes burning with an intensity that made her wolf whimper. Because Marcus Steele arrived in town this afternoon. He's staying at the same inn I am. And if I found you, Elara, he can too. The name hit her like a punch to the gut. Marcus Steele. Alpha of the Iron Claw Pack. Dominic's biggest rival and the one wolf in the Northern Territories who would love nothing more than to see Blackthorn Pack destroyed. He's here for me, Elara whispered. He's here to finish what Vivienne's father started, Dominic confirmed. And if he gets to you before I can protect you, he'll use you to tear apart everything I built. Elara's world tilted. She'd run so far, built such careful walls, buried herself so deep in the human world that she'd thought she was safe. But there was no safety. Not from pack politics. Not from ambitious alphas. Not from the mate bond that connected her to the most powerful and dangerous wolf in the north. Then we're both in danger, she said quietly. Yes, Dominic agreed. Which is why you need to let me protect you. Elara looked up at him, at the male who'd broken her heart and spent 3 years trying to find her, and made a decision that would change everything. There's something I need to tell you first, she said. Something that's going to make this situation a lot more complicated. Dominic went very still. What? Elara took a deep breath and spoke the truth she'd been hiding for 3 years. I didn't run alone, Dominic. And Marcus Steele isn't just a threat to me. Dominic's hands tightened on her arms, his entire body going rigid. What do you mean you didn't run alone? Elara pulled away from him, needing space, needing air, needing anything except those storm-gray eyes boring into her with an intensity that made her want to confess everything. But she couldn't. Not yet. Not until she knew for certain that he wasn't going to take what mattered most away from her. I mean exactly what I said. Elara moved to the clinic door and flipped the lock, then pulled down the blinds on the front windows. If Marcus Steele was in town, she wasn't taking any chances. I left your territory 3 years ago, and I wasn't alone. Who was with you? Dominic's voice had shifted into something sharp. Alpha command bleeding through. Who helped you disappear? That's not important right now. The hell it isn't. Dominic crossed the room in 3 long strides, but he didn't touch her. Didn't force her to look at him. He'd learned that much, at least. Elara, if someone from my pack helped you escape, if they've been hiding you all this time, I need to know. There are protocols, consequences. No one from your pack helped me, Elara cut him off. I did this on my own. Well, mostly on my own. Dominic's jaw clenched. You're being deliberately vague. And you're being deliberately intimidating. Elara met his eyes steadily. If you want me to trust you, you need to stop acting like an alpha interrogating a subordinate and start acting like a man talking to his equal. Something in Dominic's expression shifted. The rigid authority bled out of his stance, his shoulders dropping slightly. You're right. I'm sorry. Old habits. He ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. But Elara, if Marcus is here, if he knows about you, then whoever helped you might be in danger too. I need to know who I'm protecting. You're not protecting anyone, Elara said firmly. I've been taking care of myself for 3 years, Dominic. I don't need you to swoop in and play hero. This isn't about playing hero. This is about keeping you alive. Dominic's voice dropped to something almost pleading. Marcus doesn't make idle threats. If he's tracked you here, he has a plan. And that plan probably involves using you to destroy me and everything I built. Then maybe you should leave, Elara suggested. Go back to your territory. Let him find an empty clinic and a veterinarian who has nothing to do with pack politics. You know I can't do that. Why not? You left me once before when it was politically convenient. The words were cruel, designed to hurt, and they hit their mark. Dominic flinched like she'd struck him. That was different. How? Because I didn't know then what I know now. Dominic moved closer, careful and deliberate. I didn't understand that losing you would be worse than any political consequence. I didn't realize that the bond isn't something you can negotiate with or postpone or work around. It's absolute, Elara. You're absolute. And I won't make the mistake of choosing anything over you ever again. Elara wanted to believe him. The bond was singing with the truth of his words, that golden thread between them pulsing with sincerity. But words were easy. Actions were what mattered. Prove it, she said quietly. How? Leave. Right now. Go back to your inn and pretend you never found me. If Marcus asks, tell him I wasn't here, that the lead was wrong, that you're still searching. Elara crossed her arms over her chest. Choose my safety over your need to claim me. Choose what I want over what you want. That's how you prove it. Dominic stared at her for a long moment, conflict warring across his features. She could see him fighting with himself, the alpha instinct to protect battling against the desire to respect her wishes. Finally, he spoke. No. Elara blinked. No? No, I won't leave you unprotected. Not when Marcus is circling. Not when you just admitted you're hiding something that makes this situation more complicated. Dominic's expression was resolute. But I will compromise. I'll stay at the inn. I won't come to your clinic unless you ask me to. I won't pressure you or push for answers you're not ready to give. But I'm not leaving this town, Elara. Not until I know you're safe. It wasn't what she'd asked for, but it was more than she'd expected. The old Dominic would have issued orders and expected obedience. This Dominic was offering her choice, agency, the space to make her own decisions. Small victories. Fine, Elara said. But if I catch you lurking outside my apartment or following me around town, the deal is off. Agreed. Dominic pulled a card from his pocket and set it on the examination table. My number. Call me if anything seems off, if anyone approaches you, if you feel unsafe for even a second. Elara picked up the card, her fingers brushing against his. The bond flared at the contact, and she had to resist the urge to hold on. I survived 3 years without you, Dominic. I think I can handle a few more days. I know you can. There was something like pride in his voice. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. Stronger than you gave yourself credit for, I think. The compliment settled warm in her chest. Elara shoved it aside. She couldn't afford to soften. Not yet. You should go, she said. Before Marcus realizes you're here. Dominic nodded slowly, but he didn't move toward the door. Instead, he stood there looking at her like he was memorizing every detail, like he was afraid she'd disappear the moment he turned his back. The person who helped you leave, he said quietly. Are they safe? Do they need protection? Elara's throat tightened. They're safe. As safe as I can make them. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting tonight. Elara moved to the door and unlocked it, a clear dismissal. Go, Dominic. We can talk more tomorrow if you're still here. I'll be here. He walked to the door but paused in the threshold, turning back to face her. Elara, I know you don't believe me yet. I know you think I'll fail you again. But I need you to understand something. What? The bond didn't just go one way. These 3 years, feeling you out there, alive but unreachable, it nearly killed me. My wolf has been feral. I barely held my pack together because every instinct I have has been screaming at me to find you, to fix what I broke, to make things right. His eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. You think you were the only one who suffered when we separated. You weren't. The difference is, my suffering was deserved. Yours wasn't. Before Elara could respond, he was gone, disappearing into the night like smoke. Elara locked the door behind him and leaned against it, her heart racing. The clinic felt too empty now, too quiet, like Dominic's presence had filled up all the spaces she'd carefully constructed over 3 years of solitude. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and scrolled to a contact labeled simply with a heart emoji. Her thumb hovered over the call button for a long moment before she pressed it. The line rang twice before a sleepy voice answered. Mama? It's late. Elara's chest constricted. I know, baby. I'm sorry. Did I wake you? Little bit. There was rustling on the other end, the sound of small feet padding across hardwood floors. Are you coming home soon? Soon, Elara promised. Very soon. Is Aunt Sarah still there? Yeah. She made mac and cheese for dinner. The good kind with the breadcrumbs on top. A pause. Mama, are you okay? You sound sad. Elara closed her eyes, fighting back tears. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a long day at work. Listen, I need you to do something for me, okay? Okay. Tomorrow after school, I want you to go straight to Aunt Sarah's house. Don't go to the park. Don't stop anywhere. Just straight home. Can you do that for me? You're scaring me. The voice on the other end was smaller now, worried. Did something bad happen? No, nothing bad. I just need to make sure you're safe. Elara kept her voice steady, calm, even as her heart was racing. Promise me, baby. Straight to Aunt Sarah's. I promise. A beat of silence. Is it because of him? The man you told me about? My father? Elara's breath caught. She'd never explicitly told her daughter about Dominic, had only mentioned once in a moment of weakness that somewhere out there was a man who didn't know she existed. A man who'd lost the right to know. Maybe, Elara admitted. But you don't need to worry about that. I'll handle it. I'm not a baby anymore, Mama. I'm almost 3.5. I can handle things too. Almost 3.5. Born exactly 9 months after Elara had fled Blackthorn territory. Born with amber eyes flecked with gold and a smile that was pure Dominic Blackthorn, even though she'd never met her father. Born from a bond that should have been celebrated but was instead hidden away like a shameful secret. I know you can, my brave girl, Elara said softly. But some things are for grown-ups to handle. This is one of them. They talked for a few more minutes, Elara listening to her daughter chatter about school and friends and a new book she was reading, normal childhood things that made Elara's heart ache with how much she wanted to keep this life separate from the pack world that was closing in around them. Finally, she said goodnight and ended the call. Elara sank down onto the clinic floor, her back against the door, and let herself feel the full weight of what was coming. Dominic was here. Marcus Steele was hunting. And somewhere in this small coastal town was a 3-year-old girl with wolf blood in her veins who had no idea that her existence was about to start a war. Elara didn't sleep that night. She went through the motions of closing up the clinic, checking on the recovering animals one last time, turning off lights and locking doors. She drove home to her small apartment above the bookstore on Main Street, the same route she'd taken every night for 3 years. Safe. Predictable. Boring. Except tonight, she checked her rearview mirror every 30 seconds. Tonight, she parked under the streetlight instead of in her usual spot. Tonight, she texted Sarah 3 times to confirm that all the doors were locked and the security system was armed. Her apartment felt different too. Smaller somehow, like the walls were closing in. Elara paced from the kitchen to the living room to the bedroom and back again, her wolf restless beneath her skin. The bond with Dominic was alive again, thrumming with an awareness that wouldn't let her settle. He was close. Maybe a mile away at the inn. She could feel him like a compass pointing north, that golden thread between them stretched taut but no longer fraying. It would be so easy to follow it. To show up at his door and let him hold her the way she'd dreamed about for 3 years. To tell him everything and let him shoulder the burden she'd been carrying alone. But easy wasn't safe. And safe was all that mattered now. Elara's phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Unknown number. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hello? Dr. Ashwood? The voice was smooth, cultured, with an edge that made her wolf bristle. I apologize for calling so late. My name is Marcus Steele. I'm visiting your lovely town on business, and I'm afraid my dog has taken ill. I was told you're the best veterinarian in the area. Elara's blood ran cold. She kept her voice professional, detached. The clinic opens at 9 tomorrow morning, Mr. Steele. You can bring your dog in then. I'm afraid this can't wait until morning. He's in considerable distress. A pause, weighted and deliberate. I'd be very grateful if you could make an exception. I'm staying at the Seaside Inn. Room 12. I could bring him to your clinic in, say, 20 minutes? It was a test. Elara knew it with bone-deep certainty. Marcus was probing, watching to see how she'd react, whether she'd run or call for help or do something that would confirm she was more than just a simple small-town veterinarian. What kind of dog? Elara asked. I'm sorry? What breed is your dog, Mr. Steele? You said he's ill. I need to know what I'm dealing with so I can prepare the appropriate treatment. A beat of silence. German Shepherd. Large male. He's been vomiting and lethargic. Bring him in at 9, Elara repeated. If he's still mobile and responsive, he can wait 6 hours. If his condition deteriorates before then, take him to the emergency animal hospital in Bayport. It's about 40 minutes north. Dr. Ashwood. Those are your options, Mr. Steele. Have a good night. Elara ended the call before he could respond. Her hands were shaking. She pulled up Dominic's contact and typed out a message. Marcus just called. He knows where I work. Claimed his dog is sick and wanted me to meet him at 2 a.m. The response came back in seconds. I'm coming over. No. Stay where you are. I'm fine. Just wanted you to know. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Did he threaten you? Not directly. But he knows, Dominic. He knows exactly who I am. I'll handle it. No. You'll make it worse. Just stay away from him. Don't give him ammunition. Elara waited, watching the screen. Finally, another message came through. I don't like this. Neither do I. But I've been handling dangerous situations on my own for a long time. Trust me to know what I'm doing. The response took longer this time. I do trust you. That doesn't mean I'm not terrified. Elara stared at those words, something warm and unexpected blooming in her chest. The old Dominic wouldn't have admitted fear. Wouldn't have acknowledged that she was capable of handling herself. Wouldn't have trusted her judgment over his own protective instincts. Maybe he really had changed. She typed back quickly. Get some sleep. We'll figure this out tomorrow. But sleep didn't come for either of them. Elara spent the rest of the night preparing, planning, running through scenarios in her head. By the time the sun rose, she'd made 3 important decisions. First, she was moving her daughter. Sarah would take her to stay with her sister in Portland for a few days. Out of town. Out of reach. Second, she was going to tell Dominic the truth. Not because she wanted to, but because Marcus's presence changed everything. If there was going to be a fight, Dominic deserved to know what he was fighting for. Third, she was done running. Elara arrived at the clinic at 8:30, half an hour before opening. She wasn't surprised to find Dominic waiting in the parking lot, leaning against a sleek black truck that definitely hadn't been there yesterday. I thought I told you to stay away, Elara said as she unlocked the front door. You told me not to leave town. You told me not to lurk outside your apartment. You said nothing about the clinic parking lot. Dominic followed her inside, and she noticed he was carrying 2 coffee cups. Peace offering? Elara took one, grateful. You're impossible. I've been told. He watched her move through the clinic, turning on lights, checking the schedule. Did you sleep? No. You? No. Dominic set his coffee down and crossed his arms. Are you going to tell me what you meant last night? About not running alone? Elara checked the time. 8:45. She had 15 minutes before the clinic officially opened, before the rest of her staff arrived, before the carefully constructed world she'd built started to crumble. 15 minutes to change everything. I need you to promise me something first, Elara said. Anything. Don't interrupt. Don't get angry. Don't make any demands or issue any alpha orders. Just listen. She met his eyes. Can you do that? Dominic's expression grew wary, but he nodded. I promise. Elara took a deep breath and spoke the words that would shatter his world. When I left your territory 3 years ago, I was pregnant. I didn't know it at the time, didn't even suspect until I'd been gone for almost 2 months. By then, I was living here, building a new life, and I'd convinced myself that you'd made your choice. That you'd chosen Vivienne and her fake heir over me and our bond. She paused, watching his face. I had a daughter, Dominic. Her name is Kaya. She's 3 years old. And she's yours. The color drained from Dominic's face. He swayed slightly, gripping the edge of the examination table for support. What? You have a daughter, Elara repeated, her voice steady even though her heart was racing. She has your eyes. Your smile. Your stubborn determination. And until 5 minutes ago, she had no idea her father existed. Dominic opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out. He looked like a man who'd just taken a physical blow, all the air knocked from his lungs. Say something, Elara prompted. Dominic's voice was hoarse. A daughter. We have a daughter. I have a daughter, Elara corrected gently. You have a stranger with your DNA who doesn't know you exist. That seemed to snap him out of his shock. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you reach out, send word, something? Because you just announced another woman as your Luna and claimed her child as your heir, Elara said. Because I was terrified you'd try to take Kaya from me. Because I'd spent 6 months being your secret, and I refused to let my daughter grow up the same way. Hidden. Shameful. A political inconvenience. She wouldn't have been. Wouldn't she? Elara challenged. Really? An illegitimate child born to an unmated Omega while you were publicly bound to another woman? What do you think your pack would have said, Dominic? What do you think the other alphas would have done with that information? Dominic's jaw clenched. They would have used her against me. Exactly. So I made a choice. I chose her safety over your right to know. I chose giving her a normal childhood over pack politics and power plays. And I'd make the same choice again. You should have trusted me. You hadn't earned my trust. Elara's voice was sharp. You'd spent 6 months asking me to wait, to be patient, to trust that you'd handle everything. And then you stood in front of the pack and proved that I was right not to. Dominic flinched. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. Being an unmated Omega isn't fair. Watching the man you love claim someone else isn't fair. Raising a child alone while her father searches for you isn't fair. Elara's voice cracked. But I did it anyway. I built a life for us. A good life. And I won't let you or Marcus or anyone else destroy it. I would never destroy what you've built, Dominic said quietly. Elara, a daughter. We have a daughter. Do you have any idea what that means? It means everything is about to get infinitely more complicated, Elara said. Because Marcus isn't just here to use me against you anymore. If he finds out about Kaya, if he discovers you have a trueborn heir that no one knows about, he'll use her to start a war, Dominic finished, his expression turning grim. A legitimate heir with Blackthorn and Ashwood blood would be valuable to anyone wanting to challenge my authority or forge alliances. Which is why she's leaving town today. My friend Sarah is taking her to Portland. Somewhere safe. No. Elara's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? I said no. Dominic straightened, and there was steel in his voice now. You don't get to make unilateral decisions about our daughter's safety anymore. If Marcus is hunting, if there's a threat, then she needs pack protection. Real protection. Not a human friend in a city 2 hours away. She's been perfectly safe for 3 years without pack protection. Because no one knew she existed. Dominic moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the small clinic. That changed the moment Marcus showed up in this town. He's not stupid, Elara. He'll investigate. He'll dig. And eventually, he'll find out about Kaya. Then what do you suggest? Elara demanded. Take her to your territory where every wolf will know exactly who and what she is. Make her a target? Take her somewhere Marcus can't reach her. Somewhere with defenses and trained warriors and pack bonds strong enough to protect her. She's 3 years old, Dominic. She's human as far as she knows. She's never shifted, never been around other wolves, never had to deal with pack dynamics. Elara's voice rose. You want to throw her into that world without preparation, without time to adjust, without. The clinic door opened. Both of them turned to find Marcus Steele standing in the entrance, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, his ice blue eyes moving between them with predatory interest. I hope I'm not interrupting, he said smoothly. But my dog is still quite ill, and I was hoping Dr. Ashwood could spare a few minutes. There was no dog. They all knew it. The clinic doesn't open for another 10 minutes, Elara said, her voice remarkably steady. And I'm currently in a private consultation with this client. Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course. How rude of me. His gaze locked on Dominic. Blackthorn. Fancy meeting you here. Following the same lead I was, I presume? The air in the clinic turned electric. Something like that, Dominic said carefully. Marcus's smile widened. Well then. This should be interesting. The tension in the clinic was suffocating. Elara could feel her wolf pushing against her carefully constructed walls, responding to the alpha dominance radiating from both males. Dominic had positioned himself slightly in front of her, a protective gesture that would have been sweet if it wasn't so damning. Marcus noticed. Of course he noticed. How long have you known each other? Marcus asked pleasantly, his gaze sharp as broken glass. You and Dr. Ashwood? We just met, Dominic said smoothly. I heard she was the best veterinarian in town. My dog needs a specialist. Fascinating. I heard the same thing. Marcus took a step into the clinic uninvited. Though I have to admit, Blackthorn, you don't strike me as the type to own a pet. Too busy with pack politics and territory disputes. People change. Indeed they do. Marcus's eyes slid to Elara. Dr. Ashwood, you look familiar. Have we met before? I don't think so, Elara said, keeping her voice neutral. I've lived here for 3 years. Pretty quiet life. Not much interaction with out-of-towners. 3 years. Interesting time frame. Marcus pulled out his phone, tapping at the screen. That's right around when a certain Omega disappeared from Blackthorn territory. Caused quite the scandal when the confession came out. Vivienne Clearwater's father documented everything, you see. Including physical descriptions. Elara's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. Amber eyes with flecks of gold. Rare coloring. Very distinctive. Marcus looked up from his phone, his smile predatory. The confession mentioned those eyes specifically. Said Dominic's true mate had eyes like liquid gold. There must be thousands of people with amber eyes, Dominic interjected, his voice carrying an edge of warning. You're reaching, Steele. Am I? Marcus pocketed his phone and took another step forward. Dominic matched him, putting himself between Marcus and Elara. The movement was subtle but unmistakable. Marcus laughed. Oh, this is precious. The great Dominic Blackthorn, playing bodyguard to a small-town veterinarian he just met. Tell me, does pack protocol allow alphas to be this protective of strangers? I'm protective of all civilians in my presence, Dominic said coldly. Especially when rival alphas show up making thinly veiled threats. Threats? I'm simply here about my sick dog. Marcus's expression turned mockingly innocent. Though I have to say, finding you here is quite the coincidence. Almost like you were tipped off that I was coming to this specific clinic. Makes a man wonder what could possibly be so important about Dr. Ashwood that two alphas would converge on her doorstep. Mr. Steele, Elara said firmly, stepping around Dominic despite his warning growl. I don't know what game you're playing, but I run a legitimate business here. If you have a sick animal, I'll treat it during business hours with proper documentation. If you're here for some other reason, I suggest you leave before I call the police. The human police. Marcus's smile widened. How quaint. Do they know what you are, Dr. Ashwood? Do your neighbors understand that the sweet veterinarian living above the bookstore is actually a werewolf who's been hiding from her mate for 3 years? The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Get out, Dominic snarled, his alpha power flooding the room. Now. Or what? You'll attack me in a human establishment? Start an incident that will bring pack councils down on both our heads? Marcus held his ground, utterly unfazed by Dominic's dominance. I don't think so, Blackthorn. You're too controlled for that. Too concerned with maintaining your reputation. You have no idea what I'm capable of. On the contrary, I know exactly what you're capable of. Marcus's gaze slid back to Elara. I know you chose politics over your mate 3 years ago. I know you let her run rather than claim her publicly. I know you've been searching desperately ever since, trying to fix a mistake that cost you everything. This is your last warning, Dominic said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. And this is mine. Marcus's pleasant facade cracked, revealing the ruthless alpha underneath. I came to this town with a simple goal, find Elara Ashwood and use her to destroy you. Expose your weakness. Prove to the pack councils that Dominic Blackthorn is unfit to lead because he can't even protect his own mate. Elara's breath caught. Hearing her name in Marcus's mouth made her skin crawl. But now I'm realizing this situation is far more interesting than I anticipated. Marcus's eyes gleamed. Because if Dr. Ashwood really is Elara Ashwood, and she's been living peacefully in this human town for 3 years, that begs a question. Why? Why run? Why hide? What could possibly be important enough to make a wolf suppress their nature and live among humans? That's enough, Elara said quietly. Is it? Marcus tilted his head, studying her. Because I'm starting to think there's more to this story. The timeline is curious, you see. 3 years. Long enough for... I said that's enough. Elara's wolf surged forward, her eyes flashing gold. Power rippled through the clinic, making the lights flicker. It was a fraction of what a full-blooded wolf could produce, but it was enough to make Marcus pause. Well, Marcus murmured. There's the wolf. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten how to let her out. Leave my clinic, Elara said, her voice carrying an authority she rarely used. Leave this town. Whatever vendetta you have with Dominic, I'm not part of it. You became part of it the moment the mate bond snapped into place. Marcus's expression hardened. And whether you like it or not, Dr. Ashwood, you're a weapon. A very valuable weapon that I intend to use. Dominic moved fast. One moment he was standing still, the next he had Marcus by the throat, slammed against the wall. Touch her and I'll rip you apart. There it is. Marcus wheezed out a laugh despite the hand crushing his windpipe. There's the feral alpha everyone's been whispering about. The one who's barely holding it together because his mate bond is incomplete. Tell me, Blackthorn, how long do you think you can maintain control? How long before your wolf takes over completely? Long enough to end you. And start a war that will consume both our packs? I don't think so. Marcus's eyes shifted to Elara. Call him off, Omega. Before he does something that can't be undone. Elara's mind raced. If Dominic hurt Marcus here, in her clinic, in the human world, the consequences would be catastrophic. Pack councils would investigate. Human authorities would ask questions. And Kaya, sweet innocent Kaya, would be exposed to a world Elara had worked so hard to keep her from. Dominic, she said softly. Let him go. He threatened you. And if you kill him, you prove him right. You prove you're unstable. Unfit to lead. Elara moved closer, carefully placing her hand on Dominic's arm. The bond flared at the contact, and she felt some of the tension drain from his body. Please. Trust me. For a long moment, Dominic didn't move. Then, slowly, his fingers uncurled from Marcus's throat. Marcus coughed, straightening his suit. How touching. The Omega taming the beast. Get out, Elara repeated. And don't come back. Oh, I'll be back. Marcus headed for the door, then paused. By the way, Dr. Ashwood, I did some research on you last night. Fascinating what you can find in public records. Birth certificates, school enrollments, property purchases. His smile was razor sharp. You've been very careful. Almost perfect. But nobody's perfect. Ice flooded Elara's veins. There's a discrepancy in your tax records from 2 years ago, Marcus continued. A dependent claimed. Childcare expenses. Medical costs. He tilted his head. Do you have children, Dr. Ashwood? That's none of your business. Actually, it's very much my business. Because if Dominic Blackthorn's true mate has a child, and that child is the right age, well. Marcus's eyes gleamed with triumph. That changes everything, doesn't it? Elara's world tilted. She'd been so careful. So meticulous. But she'd never imagined someone would dig through tax records, would look for financial discrepancies that most people wouldn't even notice. Stay away from my family, she said, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. So there is a family to stay away from. How enlightening. Marcus pulled out his phone again. I wonder what the pack councils would say if they knew Dominic Blackthorn had a secret heir. A trueborn child hidden away in the human world. The political implications alone are staggering. Dominic lunged forward, but Elara caught him, her small frame somehow enough to stop him. Don't. He wants you to lose control. Don't give him the satisfaction. Listen to your mate, Blackthorn, Marcus said. She's smarter than you are. He opened the clinic door, cold morning air rushing in. I'll be in touch. We have so much to discuss. Territory rights, pack alliances, custody arrangements. If you go near her. Her? Marcus's eyebrows rose. Interesting pronoun choice. So it's a daughter then. Even better. Female heirs are so much more valuable in negotiations. The door closed behind him, leaving Elara and Dominic standing in the wreckage of her carefully constructed life. Elara's legs gave out. She would have collapsed if Dominic hadn't caught her, pulling her against his chest. The bond surged between them, offering comfort she desperately needed but couldn't afford to accept. He knows, she whispered. He knows about Kaya. We'll protect her, Dominic said fiercely. I swear to you, Elara, he won't touch our daughter. You can't promise that. Elara pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. You don't understand what he's capable of. Marcus doesn't make idle threats. If he says he's going to use her, he will. Then we move her. Tonight. We get her somewhere safe and... There is nowhere safe. Elara's voice cracked. Don't you understand? The moment he files a formal complaint with the pack councils, the moment he makes this official, every alpha in the region will know about her. They'll all want leverage. They'll all see her as a tool to control you, to forge alliances, to gain power. So what do you suggest? Dominic demanded. We run? Disappear again? I don't know. Elara pressed her hands to her face, trying to breathe through the panic. I don't know, Dominic. I've been planning for a lot of scenarios, but I never imagined Marcus would find out about her this fast. Dominic's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read the message. What? Elara asked. It's from my beta. Marcus just filed a formal petition with the Northern Pack Council. Dominic's voice was hollow. He's demanding a custody hearing for any potential children born from our mate bond. Claims I've been hiding a trueborn heir in violation of pack law. Elara's world shattered. We have 72 hours, Dominic continued. 72 hours before the council convenes and demands we produce Kaya for verification. If we refuse or run, we'll be declared rogue. Hunted. No, Elara whispered. No, this can't be happening. I'm sorry, Dominic said, and he sounded broken. Elara, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. If I'd just claimed you 3 years ago, if I'd been strong enough to. Stop. Elara straightened, forcing steel into her spine. We don't have time for regrets. We have 72 hours to figure out how to protect our daughter from becoming a pawn in pack politics. Then we need a plan, Dominic said. A real one. Not running. Not hiding. Something that ends this permanently. Elara looked at him, at the male who'd broken her heart and spent 3 years searching for her, and made a decision that terrified her. Then I guess it's time you met your daughter. Sarah's house was a modest 2-story cottage on the edge of town, painted pale yellow with white trim and a garden full of wildflowers. Elara had spent countless evenings here over the past 3 years, grateful for the friendship of a woman who asked no questions and offered unconditional support. Now she was about to shatter that peaceful simplicity. Dominic parked his truck 2 houses down, following Elara's lead. His hands were shaking. She noticed because her own were doing the same thing. Are you ready? She asked quietly. No. Dominic's voice was raw. How do you prepare to meet a daughter who doesn't know you exist? What do I even say to her? You say hello. You let her lead the conversation. You don't overwhelm her with information or emotion or expectations. Elara unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't move to get out. And Dominic, you need to understand something. Kaya is human as far as she knows. She's never shifted. Never seen another wolf. She thinks I'm just her mother who happens to have unusual eyes. That's the world I built for her. You've suppressed her wolf. It wasn't a question. I protected her from a world that would use her as a bargaining chip, Elara corrected. There's a difference. She deserves to know what she is. What we are. She deserves to have a childhood. Elara's voice was firm. She deserves to play with dolls and read stories and not worry about pack politics or alpha challenges or being valuable because of her bloodline. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm just overwhelmed. I know. So am I. Elara finally opened her door. Come on. Sarah's expecting us. They walked to the house in silence. Elara's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. This was a mistake. She should have kept them separate, should have found another way to protect Kaya without bringing Dominic into her daughter's life. But Marcus had taken that choice away from her. Sarah opened the door before they could knock, her expression worried. She was in her 50s, with gray-streaked brown hair and kind eyes that had seen Elara through her pregnancy, through sleepless nights with a newborn, through every milestone and struggle of single motherhood. Elara. Sarah pulled her into a quick hug, then stepped back to study Dominic with open suspicion. So this is him. Sarah, this is Dominic Blackthorn. Dominic, Sarah Chen. She's been helping me with Kaya since we moved here. Helping is an understatement, Sarah said, not offering her hand. I've been covering for you, lying to curious neighbors, and making sure your daughter didn't ask too many questions about why her father was never around. So excuse me if I'm not thrilled to see you on my doorstep now that it's convenient. Dominic flinched. I didn't know she existed. Because Elara didn't tell you. And I'm guessing she had good reasons. Sarah crossed her arms. You want to meet your daughter? Fine. But you hurt either of them, and I don't care how powerful you are. I'll make your life miserable. Despite everything, Elara felt a smile tug at her lips. Sarah was completely human, had no idea what Dominic was capable of, and was still standing there threatening an alpha like he was just another deadbeat dad. I understand, Dominic said quietly. And for what it's worth, I don't blame you for being protective. If I'd known about Kaya, I would have wanted someone like you watching over her. Sarah's expression softened slightly. Well. At least you're not an idiot. She stepped aside. She's in the living room. Reading, naturally. That child goes through books like most kids go through candy. They entered the house, and Elara's breath caught at the familiar scene. Kaya was curled up on the couch, a thick picture book in her lap, her dark hair falling around her face in waves. She was wearing her favorite purple dress, the one with butterflies embroidered on the hem, and her small feet were bare. She looked up when they entered, and Elara watched Dominic's entire world shift. Because Kaya had his eyes. Storm gray with flecks of silver, unusual for a child so young, framed by long dark lashes. She had Elara's amber gold hair and delicate features, but everything else was pure Blackthorn. The stubborn set of her jaw. The way she tilted her head when she was curious. Even the way she held herself, with a confidence that seemed too old for her small body. Mama. Kaya scrambled off the couch and ran to Elara, throwing her arms around her legs. You're here early. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, sweetheart. Elara crouched down to hug her properly, breathing in the scent of her daughter's shampoo and the faint underlying wildness that came from wolf blood. I wanted you to meet someone. This is Dominic. He's an old friend. Kaya pulled back, studying Dominic with those two knowing gray eyes. You have eyes like mine. Dominic knelt slowly, bringing himself to her level. His hands were trembling. I do. That's pretty unusual, isn't it? Mama says they're special. That not many people have eyes that change color depending on the light. Kaya stepped closer, fearless in the way only children can be. Are you special too? I think you're the special one, Dominic said, and his voice was thick with emotion. Your mama's told me a lot about you. She says you're very smart. I'm the best reader in my class, Kaya said proudly. I just finished a chapter book all by myself. It was about a girl who could talk to animals. That sounds like a perfect book for someone whose mother is a veterinarian. Kaya beamed. That's what Mama said. Do you like animals too? I do. I have a lot of land with forests and streams. Sometimes wolves come through. Real wolves? Kaya's eyes widened. Mama, did you hear that? He has wolves. Elara's throat tightened. I heard, baby. Can I visit? Can I see the wolves? Kaya turned back to Dominic with such hope in her eyes that Elara saw the exact moment his heart broke and rebuilt itself around this small person. I'd like that very much, Dominic said softly. If your mama says it's okay. We'll see, Elara said, trying to keep her voice steady. But right now, Dominic and I need to talk to you about something important. Can you sit with us for a minute? Kaya's expression grew serious, that too-old wisdom surfacing again. Is this about the bad man? Aunt Sarah said someone was asking questions about us. Elara shot Sarah a look. Sarah shrugged apologetically. She's perceptive, Sarah said. She knew something was wrong. Elara guided Kaya back to the couch, sitting beside her while Dominic took the armchair across from them. She didn't know how to start this conversation, how to explain pack politics and custody hearings and the fact that their daughter was about to become the center of a power struggle. There are some people who want to meet you, Elara began carefully. Important people who make decisions about families like ours. Like a judge? Kaya asked. Sort of. They're called a council, and they want to make sure you're safe and being taken care of properly. But I am safe. I have you and Aunt Sarah. Kaya looked between them, confused. Why would they think I'm not? Because I'm your father, Dominic said quietly. And I didn't know you existed until yesterday. The council wants to understand why, and they want to make sure that you know both of your parents. Kaya's eyes went wide. You're my father? The word hung in the air, weighted with 3 years of absence and questions Elara had deflected with vague answers and careful half-truths. Yes, Dominic said. I'm your father. And I know this is confusing and scary, but I want you to know that I would have been here from the beginning if I'd known about you. I would have been at the hospital when you were born. I would have been there for your first steps and your first words and every single moment in between. Why didn't you know? Kaya asked, and there was no accusation in her voice. Just genuine curiosity. Because sometimes adults make mistakes, Dominic said. I made mistakes that hurt your mama, and she decided it was safer for both of you if you stayed hidden from me. She was protecting you. Kaya turned to Elara. From what? From people who might want to use you to get what they want from your father, Elara said honestly. Your father is very important, sweetheart. He's responsible for a lot of people. And sometimes, people who want to hurt him or control him might try to use the people he loves. Like me, Kaya said, understanding dawning in her gray eyes. Like you, Elara confirmed. Which is why we need to be very careful right now. The council is going to want to meet you and ask questions. And there might be other people who try to get close to you or ask you things. I need you to be smart and cautious, okay? Like stranger danger? Kaya asked. Exactly like stranger danger. But more serious. Elara squeezed her daughter's hand. No matter what happens in the next few days, I need you to remember that I love you more than anything in this world. And your father, she glanced at Dominic, he loves you too, even though he just met you. I do, Dominic said, his voice rough. I know I haven't earned the right to say that yet. I know I'm basically a stranger to you. But you're my daughter, Kaya. You're the most important thing in my life now, and I'm going to do everything in my power to keep you safe. Kaya studied him for a long moment, those storm gray eyes seeing far too much. Then she slid off the couch and walked over to him, standing between his knees. You have to promise something, she said seriously. Anything. You have to promise you won't take me away from Mama. Some of my friends at school have parents who don't live together, and they have to go back and forth, and they're always sad. Kaya's lower lip trembled. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to leave Mama. Dominic's hands came up to gently hold her small shoulders. I promise that whatever happens, whatever decisions we have to make, keeping you with your Mama is my first priority. You two are a team. I'm not going to break that up. Okay. Kaya threw her arms around his neck, hugging him with the uncomplicated trust that only children possessed. Then I'm glad you're my father. Dominic's arms came around her carefully, like he was afraid she might break. Over Kaya's shoulder, his eyes met Elara's, and she saw everything he couldn't say out loud. Grief for the years he'd missed. Fear for what was coming. Determination to protect this small person who'd just turned his entire world upside down. And love. Fierce, absolute, unconditional love. Elara felt her own eyes burning with tears. This was what she'd been afraid of. Not that Dominic would reject Kaya, but that he'd love her so completely that Elara would lose the ability to protect her daughter from the pack world. But looking at them now, at her daughter in her father's arms, both of them trying so hard to be brave, Elara realized something important. She didn't have to protect Kaya alone anymore. They had 72 hours to prepare for the council hearing. 72 hours to build a defense against Marcus's accusations. 72 hours to figure out how to keep their daughter safe from the political machinations that had already destroyed their chance at happiness once. But for the first time in 3 years, Elara wasn't facing the impossible alone. We're going to fight this, she said quietly. Together. All three of us. Dominic nodded, still holding Kaya close. Together. And in that moment, despite everything that was coming, Elara felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The Northern Pack Council convened in a neutral territory, an old stone lodge nestled in the mountains 2 hours from Elara's coastal town. She'd never seen anything like it. The building was massive, ancient, with towering windows and carved wooden beams that spoke of centuries of wolf history. Dominic had explained the process during the drive. The council consisted of 7 alphas from the major packs in the region, all supposedly impartial, all supposedly interested only in pack law and the welfare of wolf children. But Elara knew better. Politics didn't disappear just because you called it justice. Marcus was already there when they arrived, looking perfectly composed in a tailored suit, flanked by 2 wolves Elara didn't recognize. His smile was sharp when he saw them. Blackthorn. Dr. Ashwood. So glad you could make it. His eyes dropped to Kaya, who was holding Elara's hand tightly, wearing her best dress and trying to look brave. And this must be the child in question. She has your eyes, Dominic. No denying that. Stay away from my daughter, Dominic said quietly, moving to put himself between Marcus and Kaya. Our daughter is about to become the council's business, Marcus replied. I'd get used to sharing access if I were you. They were ushered into a grand chamber with a long table at the center. The 7 council members sat in high-backed chairs, their faces impassive. Elara recognized 2 of them from reputation alone. Helena Frost, the oldest alpha in the north, with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. And David Thornridge, who controlled the Western Territories and was rumored to be fair but ruthless. This hearing is convened to address the petition filed by Alpha Marcus Steele regarding the child Kaya Ashwood, Helena announced, her voice carrying through the chamber. Alpha Blackthorn, you have been accused of concealing the existence of a trueborn heir in violation of pack law. How do you answer this charge? Dominic stood, his hand resting protectively on Kaya's shoulder. I answer that I had no knowledge of my daughter's existence until 3 days ago. Her mother chose to conceal her pregnancy and raise our child in the human world to protect her from exactly this kind of political maneuvering. A convenient excuse, Marcus interjected. But pack law is clear. All trueborn heirs must be registered with their pack within 6 months of birth. This child is 3 years old and has never been presented to Blackthorn pack. That's a violation regardless of whether you knew about her. The law assumes the parents are mated and living within pack territory, Dominic countered. My daughter's mother was not my recognized mate at the time of conception. She was unmated, unprotected, and fled my territory because I failed to claim her properly. The fault is mine, not hers. Then you admit to violating pack protocol by maintaining a relationship with an unmated Omega without proper declaration, another council member said. I admit to being a coward who prioritized politics over my fated mate, Dominic said, his voice steady. I admit to making choices that drove Elara away and cost me 3 years with my daughter. But I will not stand here and let this council punish them for my mistakes. Helena's expression didn't change. Ms. Ashwood, you are recognized to speak. Elara stood slowly, her heart hammering. Public speaking had never been her strength, and speaking in front of 7 powerful alphas while her daughter watched was terrifying. But she'd faced worse. She'd survived alone and built a life from nothing. She could do this. 3 years ago, I watched the man I thought was my mate claim another woman as his Luna in front of his entire pack, Elara began, her voice stronger than she felt. I was 18 years old, an orphaned Omega with no family and no protection. I had no reason to believe that Dominic would choose me over pack politics and alliances. So when I discovered I was pregnant 6 weeks later, I made a choice. I chose to give my daughter a safe, stable childhood away from pack politics. You chose to deprive her of her heritage, Marcus said. To suppress her wolf and raise her as human. I chose to let her be a child, Elara shot back. To let her play and learn and grow without being viewed as a political asset or a bargaining chip. And looking at this hearing, at Alpha Steele's petition and the way you're all studying my daughter like she's a problem to be solved, I'd say I made the right choice. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Helena raised a hand for silence. The child's welfare is our primary concern, Helena said. Kaya, would you approach the council, please? Elara's grip on her daughter's hand tightened. Kaya looked up at her, those storm gray eyes uncertain, and Elara forced herself to nod. It's okay, sweetheart. Just answer their questions honestly. Kaya walked forward with careful steps, stopping a few feet from the council table. She looked impossibly small in the vast chamber, but she lifted her chin the way Elara had taught her. Brave. Strong. Kaya, do you understand why you're here today? David Thornridge asked, his voice gentle. Yes, sir. You want to know if I'm safe with my mama and if I should know my father. That's right. Can you tell us about your life? Are you happy? Very happy, Kaya said. Mama and I live above a bookstore. I go to school at Coastal Elementary. My best friend is Emma. We like to read together at recess. Do you know what you are? Helena asked. What your parents are. Kaya hesitated, glancing back at Elara. Mama told me yesterday. She said we're wolves. That we can change shape and run fast and that there are others like us. I haven't changed yet, but Mama says it might happen when I'm older. How do you feel about that? Scared, Kaya admitted. But also excited. Mama says being a wolf is a gift. That it makes us strong and connected to nature. She says I don't have to be afraid of what I am. And your father? Helena's gaze slid to Dominic. How do you feel about meeting him? I like him, Kaya said simply. He has eyes like me. And he promised he wouldn't take me away from Mama. That's the most important thing. Why is that the most important thing? Because Mama is my whole world, Kaya said, and Elara felt tears burning behind her eyes. She works really hard to take care of me. She reads me stories every night and makes my lunch with little notes inside and comes to all my school events even when she's tired. I don't want to live somewhere else. I want to stay with Mama. Helena studied the small girl for a long moment. Thank you, Kaya. You may return to your mother. Kaya ran back to Elara, who pulled her close. Over her daughter's head, she met Dominic's eyes and saw the same fear she felt. The council could rule any number of ways. They could declare Kaya needed to live in Pact territory. They could split custody. They could remove her from Elara entirely if they decided she'd violated Pact law too severely. The council will deliberate, Helena announced. All parties will wait in the antechamber. The next hour was torture. They sat in a small room adjacent to the main chamber, Kaya curled up against Elara's side, Dominic pacing like a caged animal. Marcus was in a separate waiting area, thankfully, but his presence hung over them like a threat. What do you think they'll decide? Elara whispered. I don't know, Dominic said honestly. Helena is unpredictable. David is fair but traditional. The others? He shook his head. It could go either way. If they rule against me. They won't. Dominic stopped pacing, crouching in front of her. Elara, no matter what happens in there, I will not let them take Kaya from you. Even if I have to challenge the entire council, even if I have to declare us rogue and flee the territories completely, I won't let that happen. You'd give up your pack? I'd give up everything for her. For both of you. Dominic's hand covered hers. I lost 3 years because I chose duty over love. I won't make that mistake again. The door opened. A young wolf gestured for them to return to the chamber. The council members were seated again, their faces unreadable. Elara held Kaya close, her heart in her throat. Helena stood. The council has reached a decision. After reviewing Pact law and considering the testimony provided, we find that while protocol was violated, the circumstances were extraordinary. Ms. Ashwood acted to protect her unborn child from a dangerous political situation. Alpha Blackthorn acknowledges his failure to properly claim his mate, which directly led to her flight. Elara's lungs refused to work. Therefore, we rule as follows, Helena continued. Kaya Ashwood Blackthorn will be registered as a trueborn heir of Blackthorn Pack, with all rights and protections that status provides. However, given her age and the life established in the human world, she will remain in her mother's primary custody. Alpha Blackthorn will have full parental rights and access, with the expectation that he will maintain a presence in his daughter's life. Relief flooded through Elara so intensely she thought she might collapse. Furthermore, Helena's gaze shifted to Marcus. We find that Alpha Steele's petition was motivated not by concern for the child's welfare but by political gain. This council does not exist to be weaponized in territorial disputes. Alpha Steele, you are hereby warned that any further attempts to use Pact law for personal vendettas will result in sanctions. Marcus's face darkened, but he said nothing. As for the matter of Alpha Blackthorn and Ms. Ashwood's mate bond, Helena continued, that is between the two of you and the moon goddess. This council will not mandate your relationship status. However, we strongly encourage you to resolve your bond properly, for your daughter's sake if nothing else. One more thing, David Thornridge added. Ms. Ashwood, you demonstrated remarkable strength in protecting your child. However, suppressing a young wolf's nature indefinitely can cause harm. We recommend you work with Alpha Blackthorn to ensure Kaya receives proper education about her heritage, even if she remains in the human world. I understand, Elara said. Thank you. This hearing is concluded. The gavel struck, and it was over. They stumbled out of the lodge into the afternoon sun. Kaya was quiet, processing everything she'd heard. Dominic walked beside them, his hand at the small of Elara's back, protective and grounding. Marcus was waiting by his car. "Enjoy your victory, Blackthorn. But this isn't over. That child is still leverage, council ruling or not. If you come near my family again," Dominic said softly, "there won't be enough of you left for the council to sanction." Marcus's smile was cold. "We'll see." He got in his car and drove away. Elara watched him go, exhausted but triumphant. They'd won. Not perfectly, not completely, but they'd won the important thing. Kaya was safe. They were together. And for the first time in 3 years, the future felt like something other than survival. "Can we go home now?" Kaya asked. "I miss my room." "Soon," Elara promised. "Very soon." Dominic knelt down in front of Kaya. "I know things are confusing right now. But I want you to know something. I'm going to be part of your life from now on. Not in a scary way. Not in a way that changes everything you love. But I'm going to be there. At school events and birthdays and whenever you need me. Is that okay?" Kaya thought about it seriously. Then she nodded. "Okay. But you have to learn my bedtime routine. Mama has a very specific way of reading stories." Dominic laughed, the sound breaking through the tension. "I'll take notes." Elara watched them together, her heart full in a way she'd never expected. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. They'd have to figure out co-parenting and the mate bond and how to build a relationship from the broken pieces of the past. But they had time now. Time to heal. Time to grow. Time to become the family they were always meant to be. And that was enough. 6 months later, Elara stood in the doorway of her clinic, watching the morning sun paint the coastal town in shades of gold and amber. The familiar scent of salt air mixed with something else now. Pine and smoke and wild spaces. Dominic's scent, which had become as much a part of her daily life as coffee and the sound of waves against the shore. He arrived every Friday evening, making the 2-hour drive from Blackthorn territory to spend weekends with them. Sometimes he brought work, conducting pack business from Elara's small apartment while Kaya did homework at the kitchen table. Other times he left it all behind, focusing entirely on the family he was still learning to be part of. It was awkward sometimes. There were moments when old hurts surfaced, when Elara caught herself pulling away or when Dominic defaulted to alpha authority instead of partnership. But they were learning. Slowly, carefully, they were building something new from the ashes of what had broken 3 years ago. "Mama, is Dad coming today?" Kaya called from inside the clinic, where she was helping feed the recovering animals before school. She'd started calling him Dad about 3 months ago, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. Each time she said it, Elara watched Dominic's entire face transform. "He'll be here tonight," Elara confirmed, checking her schedule. "And he's bringing a surprise." "What kind of surprise?" "The kind that will make you very excited and me very nervous," Elara said, thinking about the phone call from Dominic last night. He'd been cryptic but enthusiastic, which usually meant he'd made some grand gesture without fully considering the logistics. The day passed in a blur of appointments and surgeries. Elara had hired an assistant 6 months ago, finally able to afford the help now that Dominic was contributing to Kaya's expenses. She'd fought him on it initially, still fiercely protective of the independence she'd built. But he'd pointed out, correctly, that raising a child was expensive and he'd missed 3 years of expenses already. Small compromises. That's what their relationship was built on now. When Elara picked Kaya up from school that afternoon, her daughter was practically vibrating with excitement. "Emma invited me to her birthday party next weekend. Can I go? Please?" Her mom said it's okay and they're having a magician and... "Yes, you can go," Elara laughed, buckling her into the car. "But we need to get her a present." "Can Dad help? He's good at picking presents." It was true. Dominic had an uncanny ability to find exactly the right gift. Last month he'd somehow located a first edition of Kaya's favorite book series. The month before, a telescope for the stargazing phase Kaya was going through. Small things that showed he was paying attention, learning who his daughter was beyond just biology and pack politics. They arrived home to find Dominic's truck already in the driveway. Kaya was out of the car before Elara had even turned off the engine, racing toward the house with the boundless energy of childhood. Elara followed more slowly, her heart doing that complicated flutter it always did when she saw him. 6 months of weekends, of shared meals and bedtime routines, of slowly rebuilding trust, and she still wasn't entirely sure what they were to each other. Co-parents, certainly. Friends, maybe. Something more that neither of them had been brave enough to name yet. Dominic was in the backyard, and the surprise became immediately apparent. A wolf pup. Not a dog. An actual wolf pup, gray and gangly and absolutely precious, currently tumbling around the yard while Kaya squealed with delight. Dominic Blackthorn, Elara said slowly. Did you bring a wolf to my house? He had the grace to look sheepish. Technically, she was abandoned. Her pack was killed by hunters 3 weeks ago. One of my wolves found her alone and starving. I've been rehabilitating her, but she needs socialization with someone young. Someone patient. So you thought of our 3-year-old daughter. Our almost 4-year-old daughter who's been asking about wolves nonstop since she learned what she is, Dominic corrected. Elara, this pup needs help. And Kaya needs to connect with her wolf heritage. It seemed like perfect timing. Elara wanted to be angry. Should be angry. You didn't just show up with a wild animal without discussion or preparation. But watching Kaya gently stroke the pup's fur, her face lit up with pure joy, made it hard to maintain any irritation. She'll need proper care, Elara said finally. Vaccinations, even for a wolf. A safe enclosure. Training. I'll build the enclosure this weekend. And you're a veterinarian. I can't think of anyone better qualified to care for her. You're impossible. You've mentioned that before. Dominic moved closer, his smile soft. But you love impossible things. You chose an impossible mate, after all. The words hung between them, weighted with 6 months of unspoken feelings and carefully maintained distance. Is that what you are? Elara asked quietly. My mate? I'd like to be. If you'll have me. Not because of pack law or the bond or our daughter, but because I choose you, Elara. I choose you every single day. Dominic's hand lifted to cup her face, his touch gentle. I know I don't deserve a second chance. I know I hurt you in ways that 3 years of searching and 6 months of weekend visits can't erase. But I'm asking anyway. Elara's breath caught. They'd been dancing around this conversation for months, both afraid to push too hard, too fast. Both carrying scars from how badly things had ended the first time. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared you'll choose duty over me again. Scared that pack politics will pull you away. Scared that I'll break your heart again, Dominic finished. I know. And I can't promise I'll be perfect. I'll make mistakes. I'll probably default to alpha authority when I should ask your opinion. I'll mess up bedtime routines and forget important dates and struggle with the fact that our daughter is growing up human in ways I don't fully understand. That's not a great sales pitch. But I can promise that I'll never hide you again. Never ask you to wait while I figure out politics. Never put anything above you and Kaya. You're my priority, Elara. Both of you. Always. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. And if you're willing to give me another chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that I've learned from my mistakes. Elara looked past him to where Kaya was rolling in the grass with the wolf pup, both of them wild and free and completely unconcerned with adult complications. Her daughter was happy. Thriving. And part of that was because Dominic had kept every promise he'd made to her 6 months ago. He'd shown up every weekend without fail. He'd respected Elara's boundaries. He'd let Kaya set the pace for their relationship. He'd supported Elara's work without trying to control it. He'd been patient and consistent and everything the old Dominic hadn't been. Maybe that was enough. Maybe people really could change. Okay, Elara said softly. Dominic went very still. Okay? I'm willing to try. Not because of the bond. Not because of Kaya. But because the man you've become over these past 6 months is someone I actually like. Someone I could see myself building a future with. Elara's hand covered his where it rested against her face. But we take this slow. We keep putting Kaya first. And the moment I feel like you're prioritizing pack politics over us, we have a serious conversation. Deal. Dominic's smile was blinding. Can I kiss you? I've been wanting to kiss you for 6 months. You've been counting? Every single day. Elara laughed, rising on her toes to close the distance between them. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, both of them relearning each other. Then the bond flared to life, golden and warm and right, and suddenly they were holding each other like they'd been drowning and finally found air. When they broke apart, Kaya was watching them with wide eyes. Does this mean Dad is staying? She asked hopefully. Would you like that? Dominic asked. Yes. Kaya jumped up, startling the wolf pup. We could be a real family. Like Emma's family, with a mom and dad who live together and eat dinner at the same table and… We're already a real family, Elara interrupted gently. But yes, your dad might start staying more often. We're going to try being together. Like boyfriend and girlfriend. Kaya wrinkled her nose. That's gross. You're old. Dominic laughed. Thanks, sweetheart. Very reassuring. They spent the evening building an enclosure for the wolf pup, who Kaya named Luna after much deliberation. Dominic did most of the heavy lifting while Elara supervised and Kaya provided running commentary. It was domestic and chaotic and nothing like the formal pack dinners or political maneuvering that used to fill Dominic's evenings. It was perfect. Later, after Kaya was asleep and Luna was settled in her new enclosure, Elara and Dominic sat on the porch watching the stars emerge. Thank you, Dominic said quietly. For what? For giving me another chance. For being strong enough to survive alone and generous enough to let me back in. For raising our daughter into someone extraordinary. He laced his fingers through hers. For everything. Thank you for not giving up, Elara countered. For searching for 3 years. For changing. For being the father Kaya deserves and the partner I need. I love you, Dominic said. I should have said it 3 years ago. Should have shouted it from the packhouse roof instead of hiding it. But I'm saying it now. I love you, Elara Ashwood. Completely. Absolutely. Forever. Elara felt tears slip down her cheeks. Happy tears this time. I love you too. Even when I hated you, I loved you. The bond wouldn't let me forget. The bond, Dominic said slowly, is smarter than we are. Clearly. They sat in comfortable silence, the mate bond humming contentedly between them. Somewhere in the distance, Luna held, young and uncertain. Kaya's window opened, and her sleepy voice called out, Mama, can Luna sleep in my room? No. Elara and Dominic answered in unison, then laughed. We're going to have our hands full, Elara observed. Good thing there are 2 of us now. Elara leaned into his warmth, letting herself believe in second chances and new beginnings. The past 3 years had been hard. The next few would probably have their challenges too. But they'd face them together, as mates, as parents, as partners. The moon goddess had chosen them for each other 3 years ago. It had taken them this long to choose each other back. But they'd made it. Through betrayal and separation, through fear and loneliness, through pack politics and custody hearings and all the impossible complications of loving someone when the world seemed determined to tear you apart. They'd made it home. And home, Elara realized, wasn't a place or a pack or a territory. Home was wherever they were together. Her, Dominic, and the fierce little girl sleeping upstairs who'd brought them back to each other. That was enough. That was everything. The end. Thank you so much for being here with me on this incredible journey. If Elara and Dominic's story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another tale of love, redemption, and second chances. Drop a comment below and let me know, do you believe people can truly change? Would you have given Dominic a second chance? I love hearing your thoughts. Until next time, remember that true love is worth fighting for, even when the odds seem impossible. Take care of yourselves, beautiful souls, and I'll see you in the next story.